Hello, everyone. Welcome to Undead Talking. We are back. This time, we're going to discuss The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 2, titled The Damned. But to do that, I've got Sonia here with me. Always
Hey,
nice to have her. She was here last week when we discussed what we thought was going to happen in the season premiere, and we were a little off.
a little bit.
I think we were somewhat accurate, but we missed a lot of the prep. We thought there was going to be a lot more prep, and that the fighting wasn't going to start until the very end. But instead, we got a lot more action than I thought we would.
Yeah, although the first part did seem like they could have gone more into it, like more into the preparations. It seemed like there was a lot going on with the flash forwards and the callbacks to the first episode and then also the prep for the war. There was a definitely a lot going on in that first half hour.
I would have loved to have seen more of the smaller characters interacting early on to build them a little bit, so that if there are some losses that go
Yeah.
forward in the war, that we've got kind of something built there. But as we didn't get to see a lot of that, and we head right in there. I'd like to welcome Abbott, who's here in the chat. Nice to have you, Abbott.
Hi, Abbott.
So let's talk a little bit about that premiere, because to look forward, we got to look behind a little bit. So Rick Grimes and the people of Alexandria, the Hilltop, and the Kingdom banded together, and they put forth a little bit of a weird assault on the sanctuary that found them shooting at a lot of glass and bringing a lot of walkers, but not really intending to kill people of their own volition, which is strange.
On the surface, I think it's strange, but then if you think about it, it makes perfect sense because they know that this is going to be a long fight. They know that this is a long game, but Rick wanted to send a message to Negan that they can get him where he lives, that he's not safe, that they're not safe. And they did that with that assault.
But I also feel they wasted a lot of resources in what essentially was scaring the survivors. They could have brought the walkers there and delivered their message without spending as many resources as they did.
That's
Uh,
true. They went through a lot of ammo.
they did, and the gas for the explosions, a lot of things were used that I was surprised that they were using that early in the war. They blew up the RV, which that's
Yeah.
done. Uh, I do get a lot of the callbacks, the breaking of the windows. Addie Miller coming back to play a walker was really cool.
That was great.
We love her at Undead Walking. She's one of our favorite people, or at least mine, that I interact with on Facebook every once in a while. Always love it when she chimes in on Walker Wednesday. So much fun. But we saw a side of Negan too, where even though he had people on his front doorstep just looking to knock him down, he still had the cocky attitude to play the mind games and to talk big when he was at a distinct disadvantage. He could have been shot right in the head standing outside the doorway, and the war may have been over. But instead, they went a different route. They offered mercy to everybody else there. And then there was a surprise that Gregory was hanging out there, and he tried to talk the people of the hilltop into switching sides when they were already all mingled in with the other survivors. Such a
Yeah.
strange situation, and now we're looking at what's going to happen with that. So let's start with Gregory. There's not a lot of positive things that can be said about Gregory, is there?
No, and Maggie really has to step up and deal with that because what's he going to do? If he goes back to the hilltop, they're absolutely going to have to deal with him. The Saviors don't want him. He's got nowhere to go. He can't handle himself. He can't even kill a walker. So he's really in this position right now where he has no allies, he has nowhere to go, and he's just going to cause trouble. So I know it's going to be hard for Maggie to sanction like murder or execution, but Gregory just has to go. He's a problem that has to be dealt with.
So now we are assuming that he's going to be headed back to the hilltop, right? I mean, he can't go off on his own because he won't survive.
There's nowhere else for him to go. The Saviors don't want him because if he's not the leader at Hilltop, he's worthless to them.
Yeah, he has no value. He can't fight. He has no horse in the race there, so to speak. But I'm also kind of wondering, didn't Cal go with him on that trip? Where's Cal?
Oh yeah, he did at Sanctuary.
Just hanging out with saviors, doing his thing, about to become a Walker dinner.
But if he can fight, then they might have a use for him.
We know Cal can fight. He's got a little bit of that fighting spirit in him. But speaking of the fighting spirit, we have Father Gabriel, who made a bold decision in attempting to save Gregory, even though he may not have been the kind of guy you want to save from certain situations. The humanity that we saw from him goes a long way in developing who Father Gabriel is and what he did. I anticipate. Well, I didn't. I don't anticipate. I think that the reason Father Gabriel went after Gregory is because of what happened earlier in this, in the seasons, when he was at the church and he could have saved people outside the door, and people were dying everywhere. And he had an opportunity to save another person. And this time he didn't want that guilt of leaving someone behind. And I totally get why he went to go save Gregory. Do I like the move? No. Gregory doesn't deserve to be saved for everything he's done. But because it was Father Gabriel, I think any other survivor might have probably left him.
So too. And I think it does show Gabriel's development, but man, he just has a timing problem because this is not the time for him to start having a conscience.
No. And speaking of Gabriel, now since he got left behind, he is stuck in, I believe it's some sort of trailer with Negan. And that is where we ended the episode. So now we're wondering what's going on with Father Gabriel. How is Negan going to use him? Is he going to kill him and deliver his body? Is he going to hold him as a hostage? Is he going to try to reform him? What do you think is going on there?
I don't know, because really, that could go any of those ways. I could totally see him killing Gabriel to send a message, but I could also see him hanging on to him as a bargaining chip.
That's what's so fun about that particular situation. I have no idea what's going to go on, and it's kind of crappy that Gabriel's in that situation because of good deeds. You want people to get rewarded for good deeds on shows, and now he comes out and he's got these, morals that he doesn't want to see people die, and it puts him in a situation himself where he's at the end of a rope.
And let's not forget that Gabriel essentially pulled Rick away when Rick had a clean shot at Negan, and Gabriel pulled him back.
Well, let's talk for a second about that clean shot, because he had a clean shot when he was taking a Polaroid, and he could have killed him right there, and instead he took a picture. And I get the call back to, the bodies of Glenn and Abraham, taking the Polaroids that they posted on the wall and all that kind of stuff. I don't like it. I see this as cockiness on Rick's behalf. And even though he's talking about showing mercy, he's got this weird bloodthirsty fetish with giving it back to Negan. And I don't think it's any way appropriate, good war strategy, or anything.
Well, anytime we've seen Rick have that kind of personal intent, personal stake in a fight, it has never ended well.
Aside from the Hunters, I'll say yes. The Hunters is the one situation where I thought it ended fairly well. I guess they did lose Bob in that. So maybe that wasn't great.
It just seems like Rick needs to pick a lane. Either he's going straight up strategy and he's going to win the war, or he's in it just to piss Negan off. He needs to pick one.
Maybe he feels like he has to intimidate Negan to get a leg up in the war, but Negan has been around so long, seen so many things. I think that might be impossible to do.
Yeah, and I get the fact that even if he kills Negan, because they have the numbers, somebody else is just going to take his place, Simon maybe. So they'd still have to fight the war. So I see the bigger picture that killing him is ultimately not because they have to defeat the whole force, not just the one man. But
is that true? If they take out Negan, are they able to look at everybody else and say, you no longer have to work for this man? The wives will be free. The people that are indebted to him would be free.
I think that.
Or do you think they're too far deep that they wouldn't really know what to do?
I think they're They are firmly in the cult of Negan. And if Rick takes him out too soon, Negan's going to become a martyr. And that's just going to give the rest of them even more fight him down even more for killing him.
So when they were lining up Negan and his leaders, we saw something a little bit different. What we figured a rat would be out there. Instead, we're introduced to a new leader that we have never really seen before.
Regina.
Yeah, who is Regina and what is this? She seems strong, but I don't know
it's
what to
funny
think about
that
that.
in the fighting force, Negan seems to be all about equality. And he's got some tough chicks in there who are really kicking butt. But when it comes to his wives, he's totally Neanderthal.
Yes, very much so. When we were having the war and Gregory was out there, Jesus proclaimed that the hilltop stands with Maggie. That was a big moment in this episode because up to that point, we assumed that Maggie was in control of the hilltop, that everybody was listening to her, and that Gregory was losing control of the people there and the community. And now we actually have the physical confirmation of the survivors standing with Maggie and the survivors from Alexandria, the kingdom, and the hilltop. So to me, this was one of the biggest moments from the episode.
I agree. It was huge to have that kind of official proclamation that Hilltop belongs to Maggie and nobody's going to follow Gregory. Because she did tell them when Gregory threatened to kick out their families as well, she did tell the people who were there if they had to leave that they should do what they needed to do. But nope, they stuck with her.
And that was cool to see because Maggie has been a good leader. She cares about her people, and that comes through with the people sticking by her. So let's flip things over a little bit and talk a little bit about Carl. Carl came across a stranger in this episode who was talking about how he was hungry and hasn't eaten in a couple days. And Rick scared him off by firing some warning shots and told Carl not to be so, what's the word? Not to be so trusting of strangers. And he kind of left it at that. How did that interaction sit with you?
I see it from Rick's perspective that he didn't know the guy, so he could have been a savior. But it didn't seem like it was in Rick's character because Rick has always been one to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I thought in that moment, it was another moment where Carl, Rick.
And we did see Carl go back afterwards and he left a couple cans of food and an apology for the way that he was treated.
Yep.
Do you think that this is the end of what we'll see from the stranger? Or do you think we'll see something else here in the future?
I think he's going to be back. I don't think that was the last we're going to see of him because I don't think they would have they wouldn't have done the scene that way if that was going to be the last of it.
There were a couple situations that were left up in the air at the end of the episode. The people from the kingdom had a grenade thrown at them. And that was kind of scary. So when the dust settles, there could be walkers, there could be people. They're going to have a fight on their hands.
Yeah, and hopefully none of them were killed by the grenade.
It didn't look like it. At least none of the people that we, have grown to love over the years. But maybe once the dust settles, there will be someone on the ground. And we got other situations as well. There was so much going on in this episode.
Yeah.
That you're kind of left wondering why everything was so frantic. And the pace was just insane. Like Abbott says in the chat, the premiere was an absolute craze fest. There was so much happening, and then we were treated to weird flash forwards, maybe alternate futures. I have no idea what to make of any of this. We got kids that are growing at weird rates. We got owl statues that are built. Weird Al going on. Such a strange situation. And it was really contrasting too, because one was happy Rick living with Michonne, hanging out with Carl, and then we've got just absolute devastated Rick. Do you think this is alternate futures? Do you think they're both part of the future? What do you think?
I'm afraid that the upset Rick, I'm afraid because we know that there are some kind of big deaths coming up in this season. Andy
There's got
Lincoln
to
said
be.
that. So I'm worried about who he might have been upset about, hoping that that's not foretelling the death of a major character. I know that most likely we're going to lose somebody big this season, but I'm still hoping that it's not one of the major characters or one of the originals.
Yeah, it would be sad to see an original go. Abbott says in the chat that we saw Rick at the beginning of the episode mourning over Glenn and Abraham. That scene to him was Rick promising that he'll beat Negan. Yeah, like we were talking, Negan has lit a fire under Rick, and Rick has these blinders on where he wants to intimidate and just absolutely murder Negan. And I'm not sure whether that focus is good going forward or not. I'm not. I don't even think that we're going to get to see a lot more of that in the next episode. I think Rick might be a minor player in The Damned, and instead we're going to get to see, like we saw from the teaser video, more action from the satellite outpost that we saw in where they went in and massacred everybody,
Yeah.
or the fallout from the grenade. I don't anticipate a ton of Rick in this one.
I have mixed feelings about going back to that outpost. Like now that everything has happened, now that Glenn was killed for it, it's really kind of see them go back there because of what happened. And I didn't think it would affect me so much, but it did. It really did to see that outpost again and just of the consequences for that action. And I just, yeah, he's made some really bad decisions in the past, but that one, that has to be the worst one ever. I mean, that was just so it's so unlike him to
Yeah.
plan that kind of assault without any kind of recon, without any kind of information, to just go in and do it was just so.
Readers of Undead Walking know how much I hated that episode at the Outpost. How it took humanity from so many of the characters that had it. Took a lot of their innocence. We had people killing people for the first time. It was a poorly planned out strategy and everything. I felt it was completely out of character. It was so absurd that nobody even really got hurt. I just sat there watching that episode like, what is this, Rambo? And I'm hoping we get something a little bit more scary, more realistic this time, to where people are actually put in some kind of real danger. Maybe somebody gets shot. I'm not hoping for any deaths on Rick's side, of course, but maybe someone gets shot and has to sit out the war, needs some medical treatment or something. But I don't know. I'm hoping it's not a rehash of that episode that I completely just did not like.
And it kind of pissed me off when Rick was standing at Glenn's grave. And I agree with Abbott that he was definitely in that I'm going to avenge you mode, but killed if Rick had not led that murder spree.
Absolutely. We got a
So
comment here in the chat.
I still think he's responsible.
Abbott says it seems like Jesus, Terra, the Alexandrians, Kingdom, Shiva, and others. Rick and Daryl are just doing what they do best, being badass, whether in the background or not. And that's why I think that shifting the focus away from Rick and the main group at this time is so good. We saw Morgan step up in a big way, get a little bit of focus in the first episode. We saw Terra being trusted a lot more and actually having her Terra kind of fun, which I love seeing.
Yeah.
And as far as the next episode, I don't think we're going to get to see a lot of fun. I think this is going to be brutal. I think it's going to be a lot of action. And I don't think we're going to get a lot of characterization coming out of it. We're going to get two battles. We're going to get the grenade battle, and we're going to get the battle at the satellite outpost. And it's going to be a lot of action. But so if you like explosions and gunfire, this month's for you.
I'm really curious to see what Negan's response is going to be to that assault. I mean, I don't think he's scared or intimidated yet. I think he's just going to be pissed off. And I think he's going to be gunning even harder for Alexandria because I don't think he still doesn't see them as a threat.
Do you think that the Saviors will be able to clean up all those walkers? Or do you think that the threat is just going to give them a lot of trouble and detain them for a while?
I think it'll keep them busy for a while, but you know, the same way they were herded in, they can be herded out.
Abbott says, I feel like these next 7 episodes are going to be the opportunities to kill off some minor Alexandrians and maybe 1 or 2 main ones. And I agree. I think that we're going to see some deaths in the first half of season 8. I don't know if we're going to see one in this episode, but we'll see. But we have another situation that we didn't talk about earlier that I love talking about because it's one of my favorite characters from the comics. And I want to talk about Dwight. Because Dwight and Daryl had this cool note exchange program going on where they fired arrows to each other. And Dwight gave the survivors from Rick's group a list of all the places where the Saviors were going to be keeping watch. And Rick trusted that plan. He went in and they took out everybody there. Each person that watched died. And how far does this go in establishing
Dwight is proving
the trust?
himself to be...
Go ahead.
Dwight is proving himself every day in this battle, and they are so lucky to have him because I don't think that they'd be able to pull off any of this without his help.
Yeah, I was surprised that Rick was so willing to jump into this plan with how untrusting he was, especially with the random survivor. That scene compared to how he was blindly trusting Dwight, and after how he was backstabbed by the scavengers. It's weird who he does trust and doesn't trust.
It is, but I think that partially it's just selfish. He wants to trust Dwight. He wants to think that edge on Negan. So I think that that's part of the reason why he chose to trust Dwight, because he wanted to. He wanted to believe that was going to give him that edge. And it did, so that worked out, but it could have easily gone the other way.
Abbott says, I love how Rick fires at Negan when Dwight was right next to him. Maybe I'll get Stormtrooper aim and not hit him. Yeah, Dwight was up there, and they definitely opened fire, and Rick was not being accurate with his shots whatsoever. They could have very well clipped Dwight or Eugene or even Gregory up there.
Well, it wouldn't.
By that time, Gregory was kicked down the steps.
If he hit Eugene, that would have been okay.
So I don't know. I have so many thoughts going through my mind heading into this episode because there's so much going on, and I want to see so much happen. But what I want to see happen is more character development. I want to see these smaller characters step up and earn at least medium-sized roles and have some reason to care about them when they go into war. Because when you just have a few characters that are standing out among the others, and a minor or mid-time character dies and they haven't invested any time in them, you have no real reason to care.
Yeah, I really want to see some development for Tara this season, just because I feel like she's been stuck in the background since season 4, and hasn't had hardly any development. And she's such a great character, and Alana Masterson is so awesome. I really want to see them do more with that.
I like that she got the Oceanside episodes. I did think that was great, and it helped show her. She had a nice role in this episode that showed her strengths as well. But like you said, she's had some weird character arcs, and right now you're at the point where they either have to develop her or kill her off. That's where they're at. Yeah. It's going to be one or the other.
There's a lot of characters like that, and if you think about it, even before the war started, Alexandria was pretty light on people. They've lost a lot of people. So they're going to have to start developing the characters they have and bringing in new ones, like the stranger that we saw.
Right, and who knows? He might be part of a bigger group. Maybe he's got people somewhere. Maybe he's got ammunition because, they probably went through all they had shooting those windows. Oh, man.
Yeah. So what do you think about the scavengers? Who are they going to back in this? Because they really are totally mercenary. They only care about what deal they're getting. Do you think that they're going to stick with Negan, or do you think that they can be bought over to the Alexandria side?
I have no clue what to expect from the scavengers either. As you guys know, they aren't really a part of the comics. So I don't know. I have no prior input as to these characters. I did see the deal they made and how they were able to be swayed by the Saviors. But how far does that deal go? What does it mean for their groups going forward? I have no idea. I don't think the Scavengers still have an allegiance to Negan and the Saviors after that one battle. So maybe they are up for grabs. You know, you can buy their services, but does Rick want to do that? Could he trust that? I don't know. Maybe he's
But
done
we
it
know they have
already.
guns.
We didn't get to see any of that.
That's true. But when they're out of ammunition and they need guns, they know that the Scavengers have guns because they gave them to them.
And then Oceanside doesn't have any because they took every single one.
Yeah.
Bunch of jerks. Abbott says that he really wants Michonne to kill Jadis because of, you know, the laying with him kind of stuff. I think that'd be kind of fun.
I think Michonne would like that too.
But Pollyanna McIntosh was made a series regular, so I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon. Sorry, Abbott. But you never know. Maybe they're fooling with us.
The Scavengers could be useful later on.
It's true. It's very true. All right, so I gave some of my predictions as far as what I'm expecting. What are you expecting from this episode?
I am expecting... I don't know what I'm expecting. I agree with you that it's going to be a secondary character focused episode. I'm hoping that we're going to see more from the Kingdom and from Carol. And I think that we're going to see some kind of response from Negan. Even if he's just planning an assault, we're going to get some kind of indication of how he's going to answer this. Because there's no way he's going to let it stand.
I agree, but I don't think that we're going to see that in this episode. I think Negan needs a little bit of time to help clean up what's going on at the sanctuary right now, regroup and get everything ready.
Well, first he has to get out of the trailer. So first he's got to manage to get out of the trailer, and then he can plan his response.
First he's got to kill Bob, and then he's got to throw him at the doorsteps of Alexandria. No. But that's what I'd do if I was Negan. He'd be dead and laying on the doorstep. That's what I'd do. But I'm not Negan, so let's see what kind of toy Negan makes him. Let's talk about overall as a whole what we thought of the season 8 premiere, because you and I had very different opinions about this episode. I didn't care for it. Although I understand the direction they're going with it, I didn't really like the episode itself. I felt it moved too fast and it didn't explain enough going forward. I like that they wanted to include more action, but I also felt that it was kind of unnecessary right now because we knew war was coming, that you didn't need to jump right into it. And we talked about that before as to how we thought that the first battle was going to come right after the season premiere. And that this one was going to be more about talking about how much they hate Negan, why they want to group together to bring everybody together. And we didn't get to see much of that at all.
I think a lot of people share your opinion. Yeah, my opinion was different. I thought it was a great episode, but because I approach things from a more emotional standpoint, and it was satisfying to get that first strike, because I've wanted to see that ever since Glenn was killed, because I miss Abe, and I'm not trying to not include him, but Glenn's death hit me extremely hard. So I really wanted to see Rick go after Negan and not just react to whatever he did. So I thought the episode was great because I got to see that, because there was that first strike and we saw Rick really stepping back into Rick-tator mode where he is not going to put up with anybody's crap.
I think another one of the issues that I had with the episode is that it wasn't as linear as I like them to be. It jumped all around the place, whether it's location or time or reality or fantasy. It was just all over the place. And I was hoping for something a little more based in now.
I would agree with that. I think they tried a little too hard to fit in a lot of different stuff. There was
all the callbacks were cool. Don't get me wrong. I love the callbacks. But there's got to be a time and a place for them. And shoving them into this episode just didn't feel right. They could have spaced them out throughout the season, during the war. And I think that would have been a little bit more fitting.
It felt like they were trying to combine too many things. Like they were trying to combine all this great stuff because it was a 100th episode. and they were trying to work in the war stuff, and they were trying to work in whatever this flash forward is. And I'm sure there's some clues in there about what's coming, but of
Right.
course we don't know them yet. So yeah, they did have a lot going on, and it maybe would have been better if they had stuck to just one or two things instead of cramming everything together. But I think they just really wanted to give fans something special.
I think that they went a little over the top because it was the 100th episode. I
Yeah.
think that had a lot to do with it, and I think we're going to see it come back to reality a little bit more as the season goes on. Abbott had a comment in the chat that I just can't resist to not read. He said, "The one thing I loved about this episode was my dad's reaction. I've read the comics, he hasn't. When he saw Old Man Rick, my dad was like, 'What the hell is this?'" And I think a lot of viewers probably were, because a lot
Yeah.
of casual viewers of The Walking Dead don't go to the spoiler sheets. They don't put their ear to the ground for rumors. They don't watch a ton of the preview videos. They just go into each episode and enjoy it. And when you see scenes like this, the stained glass porch crying stuff, and Weird Al blasting out the radio, big mechanical owls, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But that's pretty much what we've got going on for this episode of Undead Talking. We're going to be back next week where we're going to talk about what happened in this episode as well as our predictions and expectations going forward. And as you saw, even from last week, our expectations and predictions have already changed dramatically. So it's going to be a lot of fun going forward.
Yep, and we'll probably be wrong a lot, but that's all part of the fun of it.
Absolutely. I want to thank everyone for joining us here in the chat, which is pretty much Abbott. So thanks, Abbott. It's nice having you here with
Abbott.
us. And hopefully we can get that chat going a little bit more in the future. Maybe get another guest or two on so we can have nice roundtable discussions. But we will be back next week to talk about Season 8, Episode 3 of The Walking Dead. But be sure you watch The Walking Dead on Sunday, October 29th, to catch the episode so we can talk about it next week. Thanks again to Sonia for joining me and chatting about this episode. It's always nice to have you here with me.
Always nice to be here.
And hopefully we'll see you next week. Have fun, everyone.